What if I told you that one moment 2,000 years ago still holds the key to calming the storm you're facing right now? A violent sea, a boat tossed like a toy. 12 men screamed for their lives, and one man sleeping. But when Jesus stood and whispered, "Peace, be still," the storm surrendered. The chaos bowed to his voice. Could that same power calm your storm today? Maybe your storm isn't waves. Maybe it's anxiety, loss, a silence from God that leaves you wondering, can I really trust Him right now? Here's what most people miss. This wasn't just about weather. There's a hidden truth buried in this miracle, one almost no one talks about. And at the end of this video, you'll hear it. Trust me, it will completely reshape how you see every storm in your life. In this video, you'll discover the surprising historical and spiritual weight of this miracle, why Jesus let the storm happen in the first place, and how this one moment reveals a deeper promise for your life today. So before we go deeper, let me take you back to the night everything changed. Have you ever wondered what Jesus was really doing in the middle of that storm? Have you ever felt like God was leading you somewhere, but instead of peace, all you found was a storm? 2,000 years ago, the land of Galilee buzzed with whispers of hope and unrest. The Jewish people lived under the heavy yoke of Roman rule, their dreams of freedom fading like morning mist. Villages dotted the shores of the Sea of Galilee, a vast lake where fishermen cast nets under skies that could turn fierce without warning. It was a world of toil, faith, and fragile dreams, where every day felt like a battle to survive. In the midst of this harsh and unforgiving landscape, the Savior emerges, Jesus. His words stirred hearts, His touch healed the broken, and His presence felt like a spark in a world grown dim. People flocked to Him, some curious, some desperate, all hungry for something more. Among them were His disciples: Peter, bold but impulsive; John, young and devoted; Andrew, steady and loyal. These were no scholars or kings, just men with calloused hands and hearts open to something greater. They'd left their nets to follow Jesus, captivated by His teachings and the promise of a kingdom not of this world. By day, they walked dusty roads, listening to parables that unraveled mysteries of faith. By night, they gathered around fires, pondering what it all meant. Their lives, once ordinary, were now tethered to a man who seemed to carry the weight of eternity in His gaze. The Sea of Galilee was their home, its waters their livelihood. But it was no gentle lake. These men knew its moods, its dangers. They'd faced squalls before, hauling nets through stinging rain, their boats creaking under the strain. Yet they trusted their skill, their strength to see them through. Jesus, their teacher, often joined them on these waters, sometimes teaching from the boat, His voice carrying over the waves to crowds on shore. To the disciples, He was more than a rabbi. He was their hope, their guide, though they were only beginning to grasp who He truly was. But something unexpected awaited. One evening, after a long day of teaching, Jesus called them to cross the sea. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. The disciples, weary but obedient, pushed their boat into the gentle ripples, unaware that the night would test their courage in ways they couldn't imagine. The air was calm, the stars just beginning to peek through. Jesus, exhausted from the crowds, found a cushion and fell asleep in the stern. The disciples rowed, their chatter filling the quiet, perhaps joking about Peter's latest blunder or marveling at Jesus' latest parable. For a moment, all seemed well. Yet behind the scenes, something stirred. The Sea of Galilee, notorious for its sudden tempests, was brewing a storm unlike any they'd faced. High above, clouds gathered, unnoticed at first. The wind began to whisper, then roar, as waves rose like mountains around their fragile boat. These men who'd spent their lives mastering the sea were about to confront a force beyond their control. Their skills, their strength, would soon mean nothing. This wasn't just a storm of nature, it was a crucible, a moment designed to reveal the heart of their faith. The Sea of Galilee, surrounded by steep hills, was prone to violent downdrafts that could whip the water into a frenzy in minutes. Fishermen of that era relied on small wooden boats, sturdy but vulnerable to nature's fury. For the disciples, crossing the sea was routine, yet this night would be anything but ordinary. The Gospels, Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41, Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 through 27, and Luke chapter 8, verses 22 through 25, recount this miracle with vivid detail, each emphasizing the disciples' fear. This wasn't just a tale of survival, it was a revelation of divine power woven into the fabric of their lives. But what they couldn't see was even more profound. As the storm loomed, the disciples were on the cusp of a lesson that would echo through time. They thought they knew Jesus, his teachings, his compassion, but they were about to encounter a truth far greater. The man asleep in their boat wasn't just a teacher or prophet. He was the one who could command creation itself. This night, this storm, would mark a turning point, not just for them, but for anyone who's ever faced a tempest and wondered if hope remains. Yet this was only the beginning. Darkness fell, and the sea turned against them. Could even the strongest faith survive a storm this fierce? The calm of the evening shattered in an instant. The Sea of Galilee, so serene as the disciples began their crossing, unleashed its fury. A sudden wind screamed down from the hills, churning the waters into a frenzy of towering waves. The disciples' small wooden boat, no match for the onslaught, rocked violently, creaking under the strain. Water poured over the sides, flooding the hull, each wave threatening to capsize their fragile vessel. These men, Peter, Andrew, James, John, and the others, were no strangers to the sea. They'd weathered storms before, their hands hardened by years of battling wind and wave. But this was different. This storm was a beast, relentless, unstoppable, as if nature itself had turned against them. Panic set in. The disciples shouted over the howling wind, straining at the oars, bailing water with desperate hands. Their faces, lit by flashes of lightning, were etched with fear. Peter, the bold leader, gripped the tiller, his voice hoarse as he called for calm, but even he couldn't hide the tremor in his eyes. John, the youngest, clung to the mast, his heart pounding as the boat lurched. The others scrambled, their movements frantic, their strength fading. Every moment felt like a countdown to disaster. The sea was winning, and they knew it. Their skills, their experience, none of it mattered now. Hope was slipping away, swallowed by the churning black waters. But something unexpected awaited. In the midst of the chaos, one figure remained still. Jesus, their teacher, lay asleep in the stern, his head resting on a cushion, untouched by the storm's rage. How could he sleep through this? The disciples exchanged glances, disbelief mingling with their fear. They'd seen his miracles, healings, exorcisms, teachings that silenced skeptics, but this was life or death. Did he not care? Their minds raced with doubt. Had they misjudged him? Was the man they'd left everything to follow powerless in the face of this tempest? The storm wasn't just a threat to their lives, it was a crisis of their faith, shaking the very foundation of their trust in him. The Gospels paint this moment with raw intensity. Mark chapter 4, verse 37 describes a great windstorm with waves breaking into the boat, filling it with water. Matthew chapter 8, verse 24 calls it a great tempest, so severe the boat was covered with waves. Luke chapter 8, verse 23 notes they were in jeopardy, their lives hanging by a thread. This wasn't just a squall, it was a life-altering crisis, a moment where everything they believed was tested. The Sea of Galilee's geography explains the storm's ferocity. Steep hills funneled winds into sudden, violent gusts, turning the lake into a cauldron. For fishermen like the disciples, such storms were a known danger, but this one pushed them beyond their limits. Yet behind the scenes, something stirred. Their fear wasn't just about the waves, it was about what the storm revealed in their hearts. They'd walked with Jesus, heard his words, seen his power, yet now they faltered. Their faith, once bold, crumbled under the weight of uncertainty. Imagine being there, soaked to the bone, your hands blistered, your heart screaming, "This is the end." Have you ever felt that way? Maybe not on a boat, but in a moment when life's storms, grief, failure, betrayal, threaten to drown you? The disciples' panic mirrors our own when we face trials that seem too big, too cruel to survive. Their desperation reached a breaking point. Mark chapter 4, verse 38 captures their cry. "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" It wasn't just a plea for help. It was an accusation, born of fear and frustration. They felt abandoned, forgotten, as if the one they trusted had turned his back. This moment lays bare a universal truth. Storms don't just test our strength, they expose our doubts. For the disciples, the storm wasn't just water and wind, it was a mirror reflecting their fragile faith and the gap between what they professed and what they truly believed. But deeper truths lay hidden beneath. The storm, as terrifying as it was, wasn't random. It was a stage set by a divine hand to reveal something greater. The disciples thought they were fighting for survival, but they were about to witness a power that transcended nature itself. The boat, the waves, the sleeping Savior, all were pieces of a puzzle, leading to a revelation that would echo through time. Yet their greatest test was still to come. What if the fiercest storm in your life isn't meant to destroy you, but to reveal who's in your boat? Imagine this: a quiet night suddenly ripped apart by violent winds. Waves slam into a small fishing boat. 12 grown men, seasoned fishermen, are screaming, afraid they're about to die. These aren't just random men. They're Jesus' disciples, men who have seen him heal the sick, cast out demons, raise the dead. And yet, in this moment of terror, they believe he's forgotten them. While everyone else was losing it, Jesus was asleep on a cushion. That detail matters, because peace isn't the absence of trouble, it's the presence of someone greater than the trouble. I mean, imagine that. The boat is rocking violently. People are shouting. Fear is in the air like fog. And Jesus is so at peace. He's sleeping through the chaos. That's not weakness. That's authority. Because only someone who fully knows the outcome can sleep in a storm. Their desperation boiled over. "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" they cried, their voices cracking with fear and accusation. And at this moment, the Son of God wakes, not startled, not scrambling. He rises slowly, with intention, with clarity, with power. We imagine him brushing off a few drops of water, standing tall on that swaying boat, the sea roaring around him. And he doesn't shout over the storm like a man trying to compete with the noise. No, he speaks like a king, calm, firm, certain. "Peace, be still." And in an instant, silence. The wind falls, the waves retreat. It's as if all of creation recognizes the voice that formed it. In an instant, the winds ceased, and the sea fell silent. But this was more than a miracle. It was a promise fulfilled. The disciples stood frozen, their breath caught in their throats. Just moments before, the storm had raged, the boat teetering on the edge of destruction. Now, the sea was glass, the air still, as if the chaos had never been. Jesus' words still echoed in their ears. "Peace, be still." 3 simple words, spoken with quiet authority, and nature itself had bowed. The disciples, drenched and trembling, stared at him, their minds reeling. They had seen healings, heard teachings that pierced the soul, but this was different. This was power over creation, a glimpse of divinity that left them awestruck and afraid. But deeper truths lay hidden beneath. This wasn't just a display of might, it was a revelation of identity. In the Old Testament, only God commanded the seas. Psalm chapter 107, verse 29 declares, "He made the storm be still, and the waves of the sea were hushed." Job chapter 38, verse 11 recounts God's voice to the waves. "Thus far shall you come, and no farther." By calming the storm, Jesus wasn't just performing a miracle, he was claiming his place as the Lord of all. The disciples, steeped in Scripture, would have recognized the echo of these ancient words. Yet, standing before them was not a distant deity, but a man who had shared their bread, walked their roads, and now commanded the elements with a word. The Gospels capture this moment with precision. Mark chapter 4, verse 39 says, "He awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, 'Peace, be still.' And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm." Matthew chapter 8, verse 26 records, "Then he rose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm." Luke chapter 8, verse 24 adds, "He awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was a calm." Each account emphasizes the immediacy and totality of the miracle. The storm didn't gradually subside, it vanished as if erased by an unseen hand. Yet behind the scenes, something stirred. This miracle wasn't an isolated event, it was a signpost, pointing to a greater truth. Jesus' authority over the storm foreshadowed his ultimate victory over chaos and death. In Jewish thought, the sea often symbolized disorder, evil, the untamable forces of the world. By stilling the waters, Jesus demonstrated that he was the promised Messiah, the one who would bring order to a broken world. Isaiah chapter 43, verse 2 had prophesied, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you." Here, in the boat, that promise came to life. But the disciples didn't fully grasp it yet. Their awe was tinged with fear. Mark chapter 4, verse 41 records their whisper, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" They had expected a Messiah, but not like this, not one who could bend nature to his will. Their question hung in the air, unanswered for now, but it marked a turning point. They were beginning to see that Jesus was more than a teacher or prophet. He was the Son of God, the Word made flesh. Could today's world be seeing their promised return? The miracle of calming the storm wasn't just for the disciples, it's a timeless message for us. In our own lives, storms come, grief, loss, uncertainty, and we, like the disciples, cry out, wondering if God hears. But Jesus' response remains the same. Peace, be still. His power hasn't diminished, his promises haven't faded. The God who calmed the sea can calm your heart no matter how fierce the tempest. This miracle invites us to trust, not just in his ability to fix our problems, but in his presence through them. What strikes us most is what Jesus didn't do. He didn't scold them first. He didn't launch into a lecture on faith. He didn't wait for them to calm down. His first move was mercy. His first act was to rescue, not rebuke. Then, only after the storm had bowed before him, he turned to them with a question not to shame, but to awaken. "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" That line echoes deep in our heart, because Jesus isn't just calming storms around us, he's revealing the storms within us that we didn't know were there. And maybe that's the real miracle, not just that the sea obeyed him, but that he could bring clarity, conviction, and compassion all at once. Imagine being in the middle of a storm. The wind howls, the waves rise, and you feel like everything is going to fall apart. Now, imagine you have the Son of God with you in that storm, yet you're still afraid. Why? Could it be that the external storm just revealed the internal one? The Gospels capture this moment vividly. "Lord, save us! We are perishing!" they pleaded in Matthew. The disciples' raw honesty mirrors our own. They didn't hide their doubt. They hurled it at Jesus, demanding an answer. But their cries were about to awaken more than just their teacher. Their fear exposed the limits of their faith. They had walked with Jesus, eaten with him, marveled at his works, but when the storm hit, they faltered. Here's the thing. Their fear showed a lack of trust in Jesus' power and presence. This isn't just a lesson for the disciples back then, it's a lesson for us today. Maybe your storm isn't on a sea, but in a hospital room, in a broken relationship, or on a screen showing a job rejection. Sometimes the waves come in the form of anxiety that won't go away, or prayers that seem to hit a silent sky. It's in those moments, more than ever, that this story becomes real, not a tale, but a mirror. How often do we cry out in panic, not because of what's outside, but because of what's happening inside us? Fear, doubt, the ache of feeling forgotten. And yet Jesus meets us there, not with shame, but with authority. Think of a time when you felt overwhelmed by life's challenges. Maybe you lost a job, or a loved one got sick, or you felt like everything was falling apart. In those moments, the natural instinct is often fear. Fear that things won't get better. Fear of the unknown. But what if, in those moments, we could do what the disciples couldn't? What if we trusted that God is still with us, even in the chaos? Why are you afraid? Where is your faith now? Jesus' question wasn't meant to shame his disciples. It was meant to remind them of what they already knew. Jesus was not just a teacher or a prophet. He was the Son of God, with power over everything, including the wind and the waves. When we face challenges, it's easy to forget that God is bigger than our problems. But the truth is, God is always in control, and His presence in our lives is far more powerful than any storm we face. The next time you're facing a storm, instead of letting fear rule you, ask yourself, where is my faith? Choose to trust God, not because the storm is over, but because you know that God is bigger than anything you're facing. And just like the disciples, you'll experience a peace that only comes from knowing He is in control. Storms are not just tests of what we believe, they're also an invitation to discover what we don't yet understand about God's purpose for our lives. Let's dive deeper into these unanswered questions. As the waves crashed and the wind howled, one question lingered in the chaos. Why was Jesus asleep? Could this moment hold a deeper truth about His nature? The disciples' cries pierced the night, their boat teetering on the edge of destruction. Yet, in the stern, Jesus slept, His breathing steady, His face serene. It was a scene of stark contrast, terror on one side, tranquility on the other. The disciples, drenched and desperate, couldn't fathom it. How could He rest while their world unraveled? Was He testing them? Or was there something more, something hidden in His stillness that they couldn't yet grasp? This wasn't just a question of survival. It was a mystery that tugged at the core of their faith. Why did Jesus, the one they called Master, remain silent in their darkest hour? But deeper truths lay hidden beneath. The disciples' confusion mirrored a timeless human struggle. Why does God sometimes seem absent in our storms? When we cry out, why does the answer feel delayed? These questions, raw and real, echo through the ages, from the Sea of Galilee to our own lives. Perhaps you felt it too, wondering if God is asleep, unaware of your pain. But what if His silence wasn't indifference? What if it was an invitation to trust, to see beyond the storm? Scholars and theologians have pondered this mystery for centuries. Some suggest Jesus' sleep was a display of His humanity. Exhausted from teaching, He rested like any man. Others see it as a deliberate act, a test of the disciples' faith, pushing them to confront their doubts. Still, others believe it revealed His divine confidence, knowing that no storm could thwart God's plan. Each theory offers a glimpse, but the full truth remains elusive, wrapped in the enigma of His dual nature, fully God, fully man. The storm itself held secrets. The Sea of Galilee, known for its sudden tempests, was a fitting stage for this miracle. But was there more to it? In Jewish tradition, the sea often symbolized chaos, a force beyond human control. By sleeping through the storm, Jesus defied that chaos, embodying peace in the face of turmoil. His stillness wasn't passive, it was power, restrained and purposeful. The disciples saw a sleeping man. They couldn't yet see the sovereign God who held the winds in His hands. Another layer of mystery lies in the disciples' response. They had seen Jesus heal the sick, cast out demons, and teach with authority. Yet, when the storm hit, they panicked. Why didn't they trust Him more? Was their faith so fragile that a few waves could shatter it? Or was this storm designed to expose the cracks, to prepare them for greater trials ahead? Their fear, so human and relatable, raises a haunting question. How often do we, too, forget what we've seen of God's power when our own storms arise? I've felt that fear too. Those moments when I looked at the chaos in my life and wondered, God, are You still there? Why does God allow the storm? Faith doesn't grow in comfort. It's forged in the storm. We all want life to be calm, don't we? We wish for peace, safety, and stability. But what if I told you that faith doesn't grow in those safe places? It doesn't grow when everything is easy. Faith thrives in the middle of the storm. Faith is forged in the fire of adversity, not in the calm of comfort. Jesus knew this, and that's why he allowed the storm. The storm wasn't a punishment. It wasn't a random event. It was an opportunity for his disciples to grow, to stretch, and to learn. Have you ever thought about that? Sometimes the storms in our lives are the very things that bring us closer to God. Sometimes God allows storms to teach us, to stretch us, and to refine our faith. It's not about the storm itself, but how we respond to it. Jesus wants us to know that when the storm rages, he is there. He's not distant. He's not unaware. He's right there with us, ready to bring peace into the chaos. And when he speaks, the storm must obey. Your faith, too, has the power to overcome the storm. Are you ready to stop running from your storms and start embracing them as moments for growth? The sea was calm, but the real storm was in their hearts. Could this ancient story hold the key to your peace today? The disciples sat in stunned silence, the boat gliding across the now still waters. The storm had vanished, but the questions lingered. They had witnessed Jesus' power. They had seen his miracles, heard his teachings, but when the waves rose, fear took hold. Now, in the quiet, they were left to wrestle with what it all meant. This wasn't just their story, it's ours too. We all face storms, moments when life feels out of control, when fear drowns out faith. But what if this miracle isn't just a historical event? What if it's a promise for you right now? But deeper truths lay hidden beneath. The secret we've been hinting at, the one that could reshape how you see every storm in your life, is this. Jesus is in your boat. He's not distant, unaware, or indifferent. He's with you, even when he seems silent. The disciples thought he was asleep, but he was exactly where he needed to be. In your storms, whether it's a health crisis, a broken relationship, or a dream that feels shattered, he's there. The question isn't whether he cares, it's whether you'll trust him, even when the waves are high. This miracle teaches us 3 powerful lessons for our own lives. First, storms are inevitable, but they don't define us. The disciples were seasoned fishermen, yet the storm overwhelmed them. Similarly, no matter how strong or prepared we feel, life's tempests can shake us. But Jesus' presence changes everything. He didn't promise a storm-free life. He promised to be with us through them. Second, fear exposes the limits of our faith, but it's not the end of the story. The disciples' panic revealed their doubt, but Jesus didn't abandon them. He met them in their fear and showed them his power. When you feel afraid, remember, he's still in control. Third, peace isn't the absence of storms, it's the presence of Jesus. The sea became calm, but the real miracle was the peace he offered their hearts. That same peace is available to you, no matter what you're facing. Yet, behind the scenes, something stirred. Think about your own life. What's your storm right now? Is it a struggle with anxiety, a financial burden, or a loss that feels too heavy to bear? And maybe you've been there too, crying in the dark, searching for hope in the middle of pain. You're not alone. This story isn't just about ancient disciples, it's about all of us today. The disciples had to learn to trust him in the storm, and so do we. It's not about mustering more faith on your own, it's about turning to him, even when you're afraid, and saying, Lord, I need you. Could today's world be seeing their promised return? Will you let fear rule your heart, or will you trust the one who commands the waves? The choice is yours, but the invitation is clear. Bring your storms to Jesus. He's not asleep. He's waiting for you to call on him. How did this part resonate with you? If it spoke to your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. The storm was silenced, but the greatest miracle was just beginning. Could this be the moment your faith finds its anchor? The sea lay still, a mirror reflecting the starlit sky, as if the chaos had never been. The disciples, their hearts pounding, stood in awe of the man who had just commanded the winds and waves. But this wasn't just about the storm. It was about something far deeper. It was about the unshakable truth that Jesus is Lord over every tempest, every fear, every doubt. He didn't just calm the sea that night. He offered a peace that transcends time, a peace that can calm the storms in your life today. You see, the miracle wasn't only for the disciples, it's for you right now, in whatever storm you're facing. The truth is simple yet profound. Jesus is with you, and His love is stronger than any storm. When the waves of life threaten to overwhelm you, whether it's a broken relationship, a health crisis, or a dream that feels lost, remember this: He is in your boat. He may seem silent at times, but He is never absent. His power to bring peace isn't limited to ancient seas. It's available to you here and now. All He asks is that you trust Him even when the winds howl and the waters rise. For in your trust, you'll find a peace that defies understanding, a calm that anchors your soul. Even when you feel lost, you are never beyond His reach. The disciples learned this the hard way, their fear melting into awe as they realized who Jesus truly was. And today, He invites you into that same revelation. Let this story be more than a tale from the past. Let it be a lifeline for your present. When you face your storms, whisper His name and watch as He speaks peace to your heart. For the one who calmed the sea is the same one who holds your life in His hands, and He will never let you go.